Hello friends, I'm Mike, the hi-fi fanatic behind Audio Architects. For those who are already subscribed, it's good to see you back for more. If you are a first timer and you're into loudspeakers, CD players, DACs, amplifiers, vintage gear, good music, I cover all of that and a lot more, so you're in the right place. I usually post reviews and editorials 2 to 3 times a week. So if you'd like to be a part of our hi-fi community, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and stay connected. It would be best if you stuck around for just a bit because I am going to dive into the Denafrips Pontus 2 DAC and why I feel sourcing a good DAC for your sound system might be the upgrade you've been looking for. I covered the Denafrips Aries 2 a little while back, which is the Pontus 2's little brother. Hit it. I was very impressed with the unit because of the warmth and clarity the Aries 2, just the sound signature provided. It was my first time experiencing an R2R DAC, or resistor to resistor, and I do go over the R2R architecture a bit more in depth in that video. However, R2R DACs do require more parts, and the manufacturing of boards is extra labor intensive, which does explain the price of $1,700 as opposed to a typical DAC with a Burr Brown ESS or AKM DAC chip, which is normally a lot less. Within this review, I will be comparing the Aries 2 to the Pontus 2 and referencing the Pontus 1 its specs to provide you with an accurate assessment. So for those of you not familiar with a DAC, I will go more in depth on the subject in future videos in the coming weeks. However, today I'll keep it brief because we have a lot to cover with the Pontus 2. I did want to address one thing I feel is of incredible importance. If you have an entry-level system, the advantage of using an external DAC could honestly fall on deaf ears, since those types of components won't truly show the subtleties and different characteristics that using a solid external DAC will provide you with. So keep that in mind when you're considering purchasing a new DAC. To say the Pontus 2 is feature-rich is a bit of an understatement. The Pontus 2 has an upgraded DSP board from the Pontus 1. It can handle PCM files up to 1,536 kilohertz and DSD-1024, future-proofing the design and making it an attractive feature for those who enjoy upsampling. This is very forward-thinking by Denafrips, reassuring their customers that this unit will not be obsolete to the avid streamer for many, many years to come. I will come back to the board in the next segment. However, I felt this was, worth mentioning early on. The enclosure is made of aluminum plates securely fastened with an internal bracket, and no visible sign of any screws or bolts on the front panel and top cover. Just giving it a nice clean look. It is available in the silver you see here or a black finish. Aesthetics, after all, is essential to those wanting to showcase their sound system. I know I like my sound system looking pretty good. So Denafrips claims that the all aluminum enclosure also provides shielding and anti-resonance qualities for the DAC. After experiencing the Aries 2 and its small form factor, I was kind of taken aback when the Pontus 2 arrived, weighing almost 19 pounds. Aside from its hulking weight, the unit is 13 by 13 by 3. Not a small DAC by any means. The front of the unit has a series of sleek metal buttons and LED lights for different purposes. The power button to awaken your DAC from standby starts on the left. Denafrips did recommend you leave it on standby for at least 24 hours before you use it. Following are 2 input selection buttons to switch from left to right, a button to invert the phase, followed by a button to change from oversampling to non-oversampling. Next is a mute button, and finally a mode button, which is used to switch between slow and sharp digital filters, which I kept it on slow because I really didn't see a difference between the two. To switch between filters, you must press the mute button, then press the mode button. The first time you press it, it will indicate the status of the filter via the optical LED. Once you press it again, you'll be able to turn the filter from sharp to slow, with the slow filter showing the red LED light on. After just a little bit, the DAC will revert to its normal operational mode. The Pontus 2 has several digital input options for your components on the rear of the unit. Let's go ahead and turn it over. It has a digital coaxial input, a BNC input, 2 AES inputs, an optical input, an I2S input, and a USB input. This should cover most, if not all, possible types of inputs you can come across that need to be connected to a DAC. As far as outputs, the Pontus 2 is a fully balanced DAC with XLR and RCA outputs. It's important to understand what's going on inside of a DAC because there are so many different types of DACs. It was way easier back in like the 1950s when music was recorded in analog and then mastered in analog. The music was finally pressed onto a vinyl record, which is analog, then played on a turntable, which is an analog source. It was an analog world. Now, 70 plus years later, we live in a digital world where the quality of sound and innovations of hi-fi gear is just constantly evolving. That's one thing I do enjoy about the audio industry is the fact that no matter what happens in the world of tech, the process that must take place to listen to music is basically returning to an analog signal, which for the foreseeable future is how things should remain. The Pontus 2 has adopted a similar architecture with many of the technologies found in their flagship, the Denafrips Terminator DAC, which retails for around $6,300, and the Pontus 2 is only $1,700. That is an excellent advantage for the Pontus 2 to share similarities with a DAC almost 4 times its price. The first feature that stuck out to me is this I2S input, which I'm not too familiar with, just to be honest, but from what I've read, it doesn't seem to have any measurable differences against SPDIF. So unless I do a little bit more research on it in a few blind tests, I can't really comment on the overall sound comparison between I2S and the other inputs. Regardless, it isn't really necessary to talk about I2S today since we're just talking about the DAC. I'll do a follow-up video in the coming weeks discussing it more in detail and letting you know whether it showed an audible improvement compared to the other inputs. However, something tells me that coax or optical will be just as capable since there has been a long history of success with those inputs. Let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of the unit and see what's going on. The first thing that is worthy of mention is the power supply, which is super important. It lives in a solid metal alloy enclosure and then was mounted to the bottom of the case, completely isolating the power supply from the sensitive electronics within the main compartment. It comes with 2 O-ring transformers that lessen the noise compared to a traditional toroidal transformer. I know they both kind of look similar. Both are isolated from the digital and analog sections of the DAC, providing clean and quiet power to each other without any interference. In comparison to the Aries 2, which only has 1 O-ring transformer, the low noise multi-stage linear power supply has been upgraded in the Pontus 2 by adding 3 rows of smaller capacitors instead of 2 rows of larger capacitors in the first version of the Pontus. I feel that a high quality power supply can honestly positively affect your listening experience. Mainly because I have heard it before in different projects and products that I have tested and I've been involved with. It does make a huge difference. The Pontus 2 has 8 resistor ladders within its architecture, which is double what the Aries 2 offers. What's the advantage of doubling down if 2 per channel will provide a balanced output? Well, it's an excellent way to lower the noise floor within the signal. Denafrips also galvanically galvanically isolated all of its digital inputs, preventing any noise caused by the inputs from polluting the DAC. It just seems that Denafrips has made several strides in thwarting excess or unnecessary noise from its internal signal chain, which I think is awesome. This incredible innovation is an excellent segue into how it actually sounded. Do all these components do what they're supposed to and meant to do? Let's check it out. Over the past 2 years of evaluating hi-fi products, I have come across quite a few DACs. Most of them are DACs featuring an ESS chip or an AKM chip, either in an external DAC like the iFi Zen DAC or within like a CD player, providing the output stage for the specific unit. However, it wasn't until I was introduced to the Aries 2 by Denafrips that I discovered the R2R DAC architecture and how amazing it sounded, improving the overall presence and soundstage of the music. It gave its sense of warmth that you would typically experience from a traditional analog source. I know you probably hear that a lot, but it's actually true. The Aries 2 is still a fantastic option for anyone getting serious about their sound system, but don't really have the scratch for this type of situation. And it's priced well under $1,000. So I wasn't anticipating a substantial audible improvement upgrading to the Pontus 2. Don't get me wrong, I knew it would sound great because on paper it's much more sophisticated than the Aries 2 and its predecessor, the Pontus 1, but how much better could it be, right? I listened to this DAC for my evaluation using the Premier DD15 CD transport as my source device and amplified it with the Cambridge Evo 150 to my Dolly Oberon 3 bookshelf speakers, since the KLH Model 3s won't be arriving until actually tomorrow sometime. I'm very excited about those. So I tried the DAC in oversampling mode and non-oversampling mode and found that I enjoyed non-oversampling a lot more than oversampling, which also seems to be the consensus around the review world. I thought the non-oversampling mode felt more accurate, more analog. I believe the non-oversampling mode is terrific because even at 44.116-bit, I'm still getting the resolution and bitrate that I am just delighted with. The soundstage was quite nice, wide, tall, imaged well. The clarity was a step above the Aries 2. It felt like a much cleaner signal through and through. The detail was present yet softer in the mids and highs than most digital sources I have worked with. I know a lot of digital sources can be a bit shrill. The bass was great, exactly where I wanted it. It's about as analog as digital has gotten for me from a DAC. Most DACs I test via headphone amp are just kind of cold and lifeless for me. I like impact and depth from my music, and the Pontus 2 gave me that feeling. It also revealed some imperfections in some of my albums, something that so many products hide because of a lack of detail. The Pontus 2 showed its presence, and at times it made my speakers just sound a lot more dynamic than I had initially thought. I can comfortably say if you enjoy the Aries 2, then the Pontus 2 is the much more sophisticated and superior version of that DAC. This is a DAC I could easily recommend to anyone who wants just a beautiful musical presentation and is thirsty for analog sound without having a traditional analog source like a turntable or a reel-to-reel. After giving it much thought and how my channel and myself have evolved over the last 2 years, I feel that saying a piece of audio gear punches above its price point is a bit silly, since things punch all sorts of different ways at different price points. However, I feel that at the price point this DAC exists in, it should be considered a reference at this price class. I think the value proposition is more than reasonable, especially for the sound quality and the overall build of the Pontus 2. I have developed a new award system for my channel. This is another massive shift for me as well. In the beginning, I was all about the best product. Yeah, calling it the best product is a strategic mixture of clickbait and algorithm manipulation. However, I haven't tried every DAC on the market at this price point, so I couldn't in good conscience tell you my viewer that this is the best there is. It's the best I've tested at $1,700, if that helps. I developed a new award that I can present throughout the year without calling it the best anything, because I guarantee you there aren't many, if any, reviewers or people out there that have experienced everything to call anything the best. From here on out, I will be presenting the Gold Standard Award. I will honor products that I find the gold standard in design, sound quality, innovation, and value proposition. They must meet all the criteria to even be considered. So I am actually proud to present the Den of Frips with the first Gold Standard Award of 2022 for their Pontus 2 DAC. This is an excellent product for a new beginning and a fresh outlook on hi-fi, not only for my channel, but also for my sound system. Thank you all for joining me. It's greatly appreciated if you're already subscribed. On Facebook, I have a group called the Hi-Fi Community. I'm taking the community. It serves as sort of a social network for this channel. I also offer a forum and other incredible content via my website. And lastly, I have an online shop where I sell audio-inspired t-shirts, hoodies, and other merch to help support the channel, since I don't do the Patreon thing. I encourage you to check it out, buy some gear, and offer maybe some ideas for future designs. All of these links are down below. If you are new to Audio Architects and you like it so far and you're digging my vibe, I encourage you to check out some of my other videos to see if my channel is the right fit for you. And I would love for you to end up hitting that thumbs up and subscribing and joining me on my journey in hi-fi. Thank you again for spending some of your time with me today. Take care, and we'll see you very soon.